Hello and welcome to CX Today. My name is Charlie, and today I'm delighted to be joined by 5 excellent customer experience analysts to run through all the latest news from the space. Yesterday, I'm delighted to be joined by Zeus Kerravala, Principal Analyst at ZK Research, Shelly Kramer, President and CEO at Kramer and Company, Nicolas Kouchkovsky, the Principal Analyst at CaCube Consulting, Derek Top, Senior Analyst at Opus Research, and Finbarr Begley, Senior Research Analyst at Cavell. It's great to have you all join me, and let's get right on into the news. And let's start with the story that Avaya will stop serving public cloud contact centers, easy for me to say, with fewer than 200 seats. It's also going to be discontinuing its SIP Trunking and CPaaS cloud services. So a big announcement here, especially given Avaya's heritage in the contact center space. I don't know, Zeus, if you maybe want to kick us off on this one in terms of how we got here and where maybe affected customers should look next.
Yeah, I don't know why this is such a surprise, Charlie. If you look at what the statement of direction given by their CEO, Patrick Dennis, when he took the job, was that they would focus on the G1500. And I know there's been a lot of questions raised on certain websites about whether this list or whatever really exists. When you talk to management at Avaya, it's pretty clear that when you get down market, they're not making any money off that space, right? It's a small piece of the revenue. It's an even smaller piece of the profitability. And I do think there's a large group of Avaya employees and former employees that remember the old days where they tried to be all things to all people. And to that, I don't know if there's any Seinfeld fans here, but if you remember the episode where George Costanza was talking to the clown, the John Favreau, and he said to George, because the clown didn't know who Bozo was, right? He goes, "You're living in the past, man. You got to give up with the clown from the 60s, right?" This is a lot of the Avaya employees that are still there. Kevin Kennedy's not going to walk through that door, nor is Jim Chirico. This is the new direction for Avaya. It is focused on large enterprise. And if you're not part of large enterprise, you're collateral damage, and you're not going to be part of that company for very long. Is it going to create massive growth for Avaya? No. But frankly, it's their only chance at survivability. It's the focus on the large companies where they make some money. And they've got a chance of keeping them long term as customers, and so I don't think this is a play to have Avaya become the next Zoom or something like that. It's really more a survival play. I will say the dropping of the under 200 seats, though. If I'm Zoom or Ring Central, I'm licking my chops at this. And for the customers that want to stay on prem, I mean, Mitel is in a prime position to pick that up, and so we're going to see some share shift here, but I think for Avaya, it's the right thing to do. Although, like I said, it's not going to propel them into being the next, great growth company, but it is a matter of survivability. But there's a lot of competitive implications here.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the first thing I thought about this was just the opportunity that this presents for some of these competitors. There is a competitor base that does want to serve this market. And the reality of it is when you're a CEO and you're charged with driving profitability and revenue growth, you can't keep the parts of the company that aren't profitable. This seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, and it's more profitability than growth, right? That's the key.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right, they're not chasing the long tail of whatever potential scenarios that are out there. I mean, it's a definition of the market. I mean, it's just kind of clarifying exactly what has been going on for some time. And I agree, it is the Zooms and others that see this as a better opportunity. And obviously that's a partnership that they announced last year. So there is they've been pushing this for some time. And I do see this as a way for the growth companies to actually find the market. There is something about has the move to the cloud hit a wall though in terms of like the kind of in terms of what is like ultimately had been kind of the hybrid market, but since Avaya focuses clearly on kind of on-prem and what they see as their kind of clear core customers, the G1500 as Zia said, I think that's something also to think about as we see the move to the cloud as maybe potentially ending.
I don't think those top 1,500 companies are going to slow adaptation and move to the cloud as well. I think that's still a big threat, even if Avaya is focusing on those 1,500 companies. I still think those 1,500 companies are looking at the latest technology developments that are coming out of the large cloud-focused providers with, curiosity and with interest. So I think there's still threats, even with that renewed focus on the larger companies. I will say, though, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I hear on-prem deals still happening
Yeah.
in Europe. A lot of questions the last 2 weeks coming out of Denmark about how they're building local on-prem data centers, trying to tackle uncertainty coming out of the US market, worried about tariffs, worried about how they lock in a large contact center in Europe, already paid for, already purchased, nothing can touch it. And it's safe, and it'll be safe regardless of what's happening geopolitically. So, there is still appetite for that, but the cloud is.
Yeah, what's
definitely
interesting,
gonna grow as
Finbarr, your comment is what percent of the and I don't know because Patrick's never shared this with I think anybody externally is of the G1500. What percent do they expect to keep? Clearly, there's got to be some anticipated attrition. Given some of that audience is going to move to public cloud, and understand in that audience. You look at CVS and Disney and those large companies, they have multiple contact centers, right? Some are in the cloud, some are on-prem, and I would anticipate that they're going to shed some share in there. And I'm sure they've already mapped it out, but what I don't know is, what percent they're expecting to lose and to keep. But to your point, there still is a pretty, large group of companies keeping things on-prem. So it does give them some runway for a period of time. Again, it's not the most exciting company, but it is a path forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I echo what Zeus said. I think the focus was overdue for Avaya. Now, the way the news have been distilled to the public is such that you take a step back and think what it was a year ago, and you're not exactly sure where they're going. So I think it's time for them to recast and tell the market who they want to be. I think everybody understood the focus on the customer. What are they going to provide? Are they a system integrator, a managed service provider, a product provider? All these, and the scope of CX, which has been expanding, all this consideration, I think, needs to be addressed. The third comment I would make is all this financial focus on profitability is kind of a bigger change taking place in the industry. As soon as we went below 20% growth, organic growth, without acquisition for the cloud, everybody wanted to see, all financial investors wanted to see a path to profitability. And it's a bit of a reckoning that has moment that it has triggered. And Avaya is probably in its situation one that faces the pressure more than anyone else.
Right.
Yeah. But what I will add as well is it's quite remarkable just how loyal some of Avaya's customers have been until this point. If you consider
the question is, are they loyal or are they stuck, right? And I think there's a little bit of both. And I liken what's going on now to the Broadcom playbook where, they've continually jacked up prices. And when you talk to the Broadcom customers, they're not happy about it, but they understand that the cost to change is prohibitively expensive. And I think for some Avaya customers, there are some loyal ones. You interview some, they still love the company. They remember, the glory days and things like that. But I do think there's a contingent when you get into that really large enterprise and they've got so many processes that are tied into the Avaya platform, decoupling that, isn't a trivial task, right? So,
and then there's the constant question of which AI feature is worth the hassle, right?
Yeah.
So which AI feature is worth the digitalization of the process? Is it full intent-based marketing so that, Disney can go out and target people who are thinking about coming to Disneyland the second they think about it? What is that feature that pushes people to the cloud? And I don't think that maybe they don't know, or the companies might not even know themselves where their breaking point is yet. But look forward 2, 3, 4 years when someone comes out with something new and exciting.
Yeah, well, I think this is part of running multiple contact centers too, right? You can try the new stuff out on the new platform while keeping the old one in place, and then look to migrate away. And so,
and when those metrics come back really positive, then you start to think, okay,
Yeah.
The other thing that's not clear is what's the end game, right? I don't think Avaya is going to IPO again, right? And so, I my speculation is that they'll, once the company is profitable, they'll look to probably flip it to one of their partners or something like that. But they've not really said what the end game is, nor do I think they will. But that is certainly an interesting thing to watch, right?
I meant to say that transition takes way more time than people appreciate. Even in the SaaS world,
Oh,
If you
yeah.
want to switch vendors, it takes a year for you to decide what you are going to change. Then let me switch back to my microphone. I think I had a problem. It takes a year to just make up your mind and decide you're going to transition. It takes another year to look at your option, and a third year to transition. So, and that's the world of SaaS. For contact center, it takes several extra years.
It's much easier to just stay stuck for a lot of
I
people.
was just say like the customer, Avaya's customers don't have that problem, right? They're there for so long, they don't
Right.
have that needed switch. So yeah.
It's actually interesting though. I remember, I think just before Christmas, Nuance announced that it was going to get rid of its on-premise IVR technology, and it was giving its customers 18 months, and they were all saying, a lot of them were saying, whoa, that's way too much, that's way too short.
Yeah.
18 whole months just for an IVR. It does really kind of go support your point, that Nicolas, and I'm sure we could talk about Avaya. It's such everything that's happened over the past few years. It's such an interesting company to talk about, but I do want to move the conversation on, and this is actually really interesting, and talk about some of Google's moves within the customer service and conversational AI space. And I want to start with Google testing an Ask for Me feature on its search engine, which is a bot that will talk to customer service on behalf of customers. Interestingly, it's also filed a patent for an on-device chatbot, which will help take outbound calls for consumers too. And I think these innovations really kind of seem to beckon the future of machine customer service. Derek, maybe I'll start with you on this, because I know this is a specialist topic for you. What did you make of these Google announcements?
Yeah, well, I mean, the announcement Ask for Me is interesting, but it's also nothing new in terms of, like, Google Duplex came out a couple of years ago, and I think this idea of a proxy, having a bot, do your bidding or on your behalf is something that they've been testing out for a long time, and this kind of fits the Google profile in terms of what they want to do. As you mentioned, like kind of setting a patent and identifying some of the opportunities around bot-to-bot communications, or just really having that assistant do things like whatever, like finding oil service for you, or there's multiple different kind of opportunities that they're looking at, and some of the examples they've shown were really kind of more for small businesses, and what you can identify as kind of a proxy or twin could have that activity do that task for you. But I think it's meant for training, it's meant for learning, it's meant for all of the things that Google has always done in terms of R&D, and I do sense that this is just one incremental step on what's next. We are looking at kind of what would be this proxies, but there's lots of opportunities. There's lots of challenges when it comes to that in terms of authentication, identification, and what if your bot, your assistant, makes the wrong decision, or like orders something that's way too you didn't want. So what are the ramifications around that? So there's a bunch of challenges as we set up this idea of a personal assistant and what this Ask for Me activity that Google has. But in my mind, it's part and parcel with their strategy of learning a lot. They also launched something called Google 411 many years ago around directory assistance. That was a way for them to learn business names and pronunciations and kind of teach and train language models. So this is their next step on that.
Yeah.
So Derek, what does Google do with this? You highlighted a lot of really innovative things that historically they've had that we've all looked at and said, wow, that's cool. And then at the end of the day, these things disappear, get lost in the Google shuffle, and they never really, in fact, I think every year for like 10 years, I predicted the next year would be the year of Google in the enterprise, and it would come and go. And so, what's the end game here for Google with all these things?
They're horrible at branding.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, what I looked at when I was thinking about this, Charlie, your article mentioned that Gartner's prediction is that by 2028, 70% of customer service journeys will start and end with conversational third-party assistance on mobile devices. That's 3 years away, right? That's not long. And it's funny because when I thought about Ask for Me, I thought about for instance, as immersed as I am in the AI space, I do use AI throughout my day. But those early AI agents, say for instance, Amazon Alexa or Siri, like my use of those is so small, set a timer for me, and yet I know other people who use these devices for very, very creative things and way more than I do. But, and I thought, this ask for me was kind of dumb and something that I would never use. And then I watched the demo and it was really kind of cool and, specific to like getting an oil change, right? That's a task. Nobody has time to make those appointments. It was quick. It was interesting. I could see how that would work. It only works right now for mechanics and nail salons. I mean, seriously, how I don't see how much experimentation you're going to get there, because making it for nail salons, it shows me that you have no understanding of how particular women are about getting their nails done. And that, I want to go on this day and I only want this person and this is the service that I need. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not fully baked to my way of thinking. But I do think that it is certainly the future of customer service, customer experiences. And so, yes, Google throws a lot of things out there, tests a lot of things. How many people are actually going to go to Google Search Labs to activate this and try it out, knowing that you can only use it for these two things so far? It's interesting, but is this initiative by Google really going to go anywhere? I'm not sure.
I'm cautiously optimistic, right? If I can be that. But the excitement for me in these kind of things is that I prefer talking to fiddling around with menus on my phone and Googling stuff. I want to be in a situation where I can just speak to my phone and it will do the thing I want to do in voice, even if I could have done it myself. And I think that's what's going to attract people to a lot of this technology as we get there, is that for me as a customer, the natural language interface of speaking what I want done. Because Shelly, you listed out a long line of specifics that you want about your nail salon appointment, and I see no reason why an intent-based LLM-powered bot can't gather every single one of those specifics and then just present it to your nail salon. And I agree, this is a very niche use case for two specific verticals, but I think they are bigger than we give them credit for, and I think they're a good test bed. The real question is, how quickly does it expand to the next thing? And how quickly does it get complicated? Because the second I can talk to my phone and get it to just fill out a request at my bank to like cancel a standing order or something like that, rather than going through customer service myself,
right,
we're kind of winning,
No, I have no doubt it's the future, of customer service. But Finbarr, do you think that what Google's doing here is a great way to kind of prove the concept, and like has happened with so many of the markets, Google winds up proving the concept and then somebody else comes along and does it better?
Yeah, I could easily see that happening. I think there's lots of people trying to invest in this, and we're seeing a lot of vertical specialization among the service providers who are building like the LLM model for healthcare and the LLM model for that understands intent in those verticals perfectly. So you're going to take that intent and then use it for something like this that makes perfect sense.
I was going to say that in terms of like that domain-specific kind of personal agent, which I think that is. It's going to like kind of specialize within whatever that is. We've seen certain activities already, like kind of cancel my streaming service or something, whereas kind of looking at your subscriptions and as a personal agent, that's helpful. But there's also then there was a case, I think it was on Rocket Money or something, where it was trying to cancel a service, but the bot was trying to do that for as a proxy, but needed to talk to an actual human, and so they called 250 times and kept calling and over because of the bot didn't realize no was an answer, right?
That's why it's not ready.
Yeah, exactly. So those kind of failings are what's being learned here, but there's also a way to kind of game the system, and so there is a whole new opportunities out there that are happening, and this is just the beginning.
But that's one place where Google is correct, is that if you do not have a way to identify a bot call and basically make it not speak to a human being, you're going to be in trouble when this sort of stuff kicks off, because there's no need for a bot to talk to a human, except in very small businesses.
What I see here is an opportunity for Google. I mean, when you think search engine, you think Google. right? And so there are a lot of other companies playing in the voice AI space. But the challenge is, brand recognition, awareness, that sort of thing. And so there is an opportunity for Google to do this right and to really leverage its reputation in the search area. And I think that they have a huge opportunity here. But as we've talked about before, sometimes Google does a great job on that front, and sometimes Google doesn't.
So I have a bit of a different point of view on this one. So I agree with Derek. There's a bit of incrementality here. But when you look at today's what you can do with the technology, it is way, way better. And it's truly transformational. Now, I think there's an issue with the business model. So Google, it's an experiment. There's no compelling business reason for Google to do it. But when you look at startups, and I've seen many actually trying to get into the space, they bang their head on the wall of how are they going to monetize it. But when you think about it, in particular, if the only way to reach customer service is to go through a bot, having an agent do that tedious part of the experience for you is wonderful. I would agree that the business model is right now what is getting in the way of getting a little bit of innovation unleashed.
I think the only way it succeeds is if it's a personal service you buy like Spotify, right? You're going to get a month's free trial. It's going to help your life a lot. And then you're going to pay £10 a month for it as an individual user. And then it's up to businesses to adapt to the fact that all of their users are suddenly paying for this subscription.
Or they could bake it into Google Workplace users' fees.
Yeah, that would be interesting if the companies take all the cost.
Well, so there's the other question, right? Does this wind up being a standalone app and part of search, or does it actually become something you embed into applications? And so,
right.
If I'm trying to book a nail salon appointment, I do that through the nail salon's own app, or like if I think for a lot of these services, we know where we want to go. I suppose there's some element of not knowing and using search, but does search wind up changing, right? Like, do we?
Right. I'm saying Shelly brought that up, and I do think Google is aware that search is going away. Like their bread and butter, which has been such a common business model for them for obviously forever. But the personal agents search information for you or do stuff for you. Like so, there is this new world of AI that they're identifying as what's next, and I think that is going to be part of this as far as the discovery use of personal agents and bots is still a brand new thing, and it's going to be for our personal day-to-day tasks. It's going to be for work stuff. It's going to be all of that. So Google is identifying some of those current opportunities right now.
I wonder if you, Derek, you maybe think about whether this may be kind of the early stages of a path to monetization, because what's happening right now in the world of search, as we all know, is that, the traditional method of winning at SEO and having your search results appear higher, or paid advertising and paying higher, or whatever, those are changing. And what we're seeing now when we go to Google is, we're seeing AI generated search results. So could this potentially be something that businesses opt into as part of paid campaigns that allow this functionality to surface? I mean, it could be. That's, kind of just thinking out loud here, but, I think Google has to address.
I think that's exactly right. And having kind of your preferred, bot talk to my bot, and if you have whatever that activity is or whatever you're seeking to do,
right?
Having that agent, that proxy do it for you, is exactly what's next. So,
yeah.
And then of course that I was saying earlier in terms of there are the complications on that. So what if you do book a nail salon appointment or whatever, something bigger, you buy something and it's very transactional, and it's the wrong amount or the wrong number or whatever, 8 billion versus 8 million, for example. And if you don't see that, I mean, some of the challenges that may present for businesses is something going to be a big one. Is it your bot's fault? Is it their bot's fault? So yeah, but I do think that engagement, that initial kind of discovery is going to be changing and is going to be AI driven.
Yeah.
But if Google turns this on, then it opens up a whole remit of different levels of customized bots that people can pay for. Are you going to pay for the big one? Are you going to get one for free if you take a certain amount of adverts on your phone per month or something like that?
Yeah.
And the free one might occasionally book something wrong. But you have to ask yourself, is it worth $5 a month to make sure that you have one that never books something wrong.
Yeah, it's a fascinating discussion, actually. And I guess there's a second element here of how do contact centers prepare for that. We've written a little bit about that on CX Today, but I think that's certainly going to be something that contact center leaders will need to think about in the coming years. But I think let's maybe now move on to our final topic of the day, and that is Zoho. So very big in CRM space and broader enterprise space now, of course. And it's become the latest big enterprise vendor to release its own AI agents. There's also been much more actually with Zoho to unpack recently with the CEO change. But let's maybe focus on those AI agents. Nicolas, maybe you can start on this one. Can you maybe start by sharing how Zoho may stand apart in this new world of agentic AI?
Yeah, I mean, I'm scratching my head on this one because we see an announcement a week and they kind of all look the same. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. I think every SaaS player is going to have some form of agent as a new way to interact with the application. When you look at the breadth of Zoho, you just visit the website and look at all the application they have. It's probably one provider that has the broadest footprint and so many different applications that are sometimes under leverage combined together. So the agent can be a game changer from them. For the rest, I think right now I'm looking for true story from the field before I start to join the exuberance. And frankly, agents, I mean, so many things are called agent these days, and I don't think they're really qualified. So it makes the landscape extremely blurry. So not necessarily the most enthusiastic, more wait and sit type approach on yet another announcement. But it makes total sense for
No, Nicholas is right. I mean, all these agent announcements do look the same, and Enterprise Connect's coming up, and I'm anticipating that, I don't know, we're going to have 4 or 5 agent announcements per day at that show. And unfortunately, there's no really good way to test them except for customers to test them, to load up your own data, right?
Yeah.
And do the hard work of actually testing them and to see what the accuracy is with your own data. At NICE's event last year, Hunter Douglas, the blind company, was there, and I was talking to the customer service person there, and he said that they actually took their data, loaded it into 10 different contact center platforms, created a scenario where they asked it a bunch of questions from the knowledge base articles they had, looked at the accuracy, narrowed it down to 3, then ran those whole tests again. But it took them months to test. And, in concept, these agents are great, but how well do you know, right, how they work unless you test them in your own environment? I do like the companies, though, that tend to verticalize, though. TalkDesk has a lot of industry focus on healthcare, retail, things like that. I think that's probably the right approach initially, is to go after specific industries, because at least you can pick up some nuances from those versus a generic one. But even with that, it's hard to know how well they work without, going through the hard work of testing it yourself. So.
Well, I think the difference with Zoho is that they do own all that data.
Yes.
I mean, they have over 100 applications that they're the do everything company, right? And so they have all these different kind of opportunities within the vertical, kind of horizontal or vertical elements of a business, like HR, accounting, or customer service for that matter. And so the Zia agent, I think, is able to kind of tap all those multiple processes. And the idea of agentic is that, yes, it kind of breaks subtasks into something that can be optimized and then predictive and then kind of, automated. And that's the idea of agentic AI. Zoho does, I think, have a better opportunity than others because of because the data and the customers tend to have what's called Zoho One, which is these multiple different applications, and really kind of they share data across those services anyway. This is kind of what's next. They also have a marketplace, so they're actually putting some customized agents into a marketplace that other people can buy or use, and there's a pricing to that. So it is a little different in my mind, just based on the kind of the universal nature that Zoho presents to the small businesses that they have. But we're still. I mean, and it is true. Like there is just a barrage of agentic announcements every day. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, and I do think it for the smaller businesses, and I know that Zoho does want to go up market and has pushing kind of enterprise model, but but I'm curious to see what does happen with some of the marketplace and the agents that they've already introduced.
I think this is a prime opportunity for Zoho to kind of lean in and do a better job of telling the story, because you've all said the same thing. There's so many AI agents. Every day there's another AI agent. Enterprise Connect is coming up. We're going to see, we're going to see AI agent announcements. All of this is 100% accurate. However, the thing that Zoho is leaning into is the fact that they don't believe that you should charge a premium for AI agents. And that's a differentiator. And, to your point, Derek, Zoho owns all its own infrastructure. That allows them to help keep the TCO down for customers. It helps control costs when adding in these AI agents. And the reality of it is today, people are really struggling with the costs, the incremental costs of embracing and utilizing AI throughout organizations. So I think this is where Zoho can win. And I think that, it's that huge amount of business data, the metadata, all of the things that Zoho already has. And I think this is a huge opportunity, but the opportunity to me that exists is how good of a job Zoho is going to do in telling that story and winning customers for whom that's attractive.
Yeah, Shelly, are the agents, you think, compelling enough though that so long term, do we stop thinking about agents as this separate thing, and they just become a feature of every application? And so ultimately,
I think so.
You're not really choosing a vendor based on the agent. You're choosing a vendor based on the vendor and the other things that they do. And then the agent the agent just becomes an embedded part of it. And so, while these are kind of interesting announcements now, isn't this what we should expect every SaaS vendor to offer us?
In the near term, even. You know what I'm saying? People don't want to wait 3 years for this. People want this to be part of the solution set.
The fact is, we're moving from an age of manual entry, specific self-configuration, to more intuitive interactions where I'm telling what I want to do rather than doing it myself. And that is the new user experience that people are going to grow to expect from all of their SaaS vendors. They're going to expect to not have to type every single specific about everything into specification on a platform, to provide the framework and have it fill out based on that. So I think that is why we're going to see more and more of these agents. And if we get there, it'll be great. We probably will.
But it's that access to information, right? So yes, it is embedded in terms of this is a simple workflow, a process. But it's that access to the right data at the right time, providing that whatever that right task is, I think is going to be the key. And there's still, since we have a lot of siloed, obviously within customer service and contact centers, but in general, siloed kind of data sets. And I think, that in order to make use of agentic and agents and that embedded API type of activity, it does need that kind of that information and that data access. So again, that's where Zoho does, because it is so kind of confined to its own applications. There's an opportunity to kind of play this out and see what's next. But ultimately, to make these things useful and it does need that business context, and I think that's going to be a little ways off still.
Yeah, the data management problem is a really interesting part of that, right? Because one of the concerns I've got for this industry is that play this out, right? So Zoho's got its own agent, Microsoft has its own, Salesforce has its own. Am I going to live in a world where if I use 100 different applications, I get 100 different agents, and none of them really talk to each other? And so ultimately, what Zoho tells me could be contradictory to what Salesforce tells me, right? It's possible that different types of data. And so then I don't know which one to act on. So correctly, you would want those back-end data sources to be able to talk to each other, to be able to give you a better view of customer experience. At reInvent, actually, Vijay Pandoy from Cisco's Outshift group did a talk on the Internet of Agents, in which we should be thinking about agents being interoperable and talking to each other instead of having one Uber agent to rule them all. But I think that's the challenge looking ahead, is all these agent announcements are great, but I don't want to live in a world where I've got 800 agents, right? So
Yeah, I mean, the second I'm typing one question into Copilot and then having to type it into another, the same question into another platform, it starts to fall apart. But that the roadmap for solving that problem is pretty clear. We either consolidate my business onto one application, or they integrate to better serve my needs. Right. So
that never happens. Right?
No,
so you look at
but
the world, right?
Yeah.
I'm an
So you look at the
optimist,
world of
right?
chat.
I'm an idealist.
There you go.
You know,
I mean, I've got Zoom chat, WebEx chat, Teams chat, Ring chat. I mean, I got all these chat apps, and none of them talk Slack, and none of them talk to each other. You know, Dave Michaels pings me on Google Chat, right? Like, so I've got all these chat apps, and none of them talk to each other. And you know, ideally, Finbarr, it'd be great if they talk to each other, but they don't.
Yeah.
And you know,
I would say from my
really
own
see
experience.
Yeah.
If I'll do a call on Zoom or something like that, that's fine. But because I do all my work in the Microsoft ecosystem, Copilot actually is quite good at fetching data. And the point where it started being very useful for me was when one of my colleagues saved a document to a folder that I'd never heard of, working on something I'd never heard of. And then my question was answered from their document that I didn't know existed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Cool.
but that requires either you do everything in one ecosystem or that you have any integration that can fetch data across the ecosystems for sure.
Well, and Finbarr, the reality of it is, talking about ecosystems is that, and yes, I know you know this as well, but every vendor on the planet is embracing platformization. So Zoho wants you to do everything inside their platform, and Zoom wants you to do everything inside their platform, and Microsoft wants you to, you know what I'm saying? And we don't work that way, generally speaking. And so I think this is problematic. This is the lack of integration, which is something we're all pointing to, is a significant challenge.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Isn't there like a role for like AI agent orchestration solutions like we've seen from ServiceNow and IBM within this though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, like Zeus said, interoperability is key, and then you have to orchestrate. We have a slew of issues around the level of autonomy, and a lot of people are touting autonomy is kind of the ultimate. But if you can today apply agents with descriptive processes, like we do mostly in CX, you have a lot of wins and value that can be extracted, and you have governance. But yes, orchestration is the next frontier.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, that was just something that really caught my eye within some of the recent announcements. But overall, it's been a really great chat. Again, agentic AI, that moved on quite nicely actually from the previous Google conversation. Of course, that fascinating Avaya chat at the beginning of the call. But I think that's a great place to end today's conversation. I want to thank all of our excellent analysts for joining me today. And thank you all for watching at home as well. Bye for now.